telling them that down there you have found land which is flowing with milk and honey, the biblical Canaan. And whoever agrees to come there will get 10,000 acres free, plus free black laborers. At that time, the story about Africa was very, very disturbing and worrying in England. Nobody wanted to come here. Most people did not want to come. So you got very little response. In frustration, he came back to Kenya. When he came back, someone suggested to him to try down south. So he went down south. He went by ship from Mombasa to Durban. And in Durban, he addressed town hall meeting. Durban, Port Elizabeth, East London, Cape Town, Kimberley, Joburg. There he found a white man who had lived in Africa for generations and who did not fear Africa. They agreed easily to come. The prospect of coming and having their own land, because a number of them were laborers on their own fellow white farms, was very appealing. So they came, and that's how most of white settlers who were here during that period came, a majority Boers from South Africa and Rhodesia. So they came here, they got land and got laborers. And so that's how Kenya was then occupied. So we ended up with what was called white highlands in this country. And people were moved, population were moved to create space for these people to settle. From Laikipia, from the slopes of Mount Kenya, the Maasai communities were living there. The whole of that Laikipia plain were moved. Around Naivasha, there was a corridor, 10-mile corridor, opened for Maasais to pass without chasing zombies, to go down to Narok and Kajiado, as they call it. Some Maasais were moved from Eldoret area. That area is called Uasin Gishu County today. But the Uasin Gishu Maasai are now in Trans Nzoia, that's where they live. They were moved from there to create space for Wazungus to settle in those areas. In Kericho and Bomet there, the large chunk of land was taken away from the Kipsigis and turned into tea estates. The same thing happened in Nandi. The same thing happened in Central Province area here and around Mount Kenya area. People were moved away from their lands and to create space for large-scale farming. So that's how Kenya was now settled by the white men. And then the white men, of course, they set up administrative structures in the country and ran this country for 60 years. So Kenya is now 60 years independent. It was also 60 years under proper colonial rule. So today now you are almost at 50-50 now. To look at what happened, what did the colonialists do in that 60 years, and what have we done ourselves the 60 years. Over the years, the joy of, so we attained independence after a long struggle, because Kenyans were being oppressed seriously. The land had been taken away. Africans were classified as not even second class, third class people. You had apartheid in this country. There was a white man There was the Indian, there was the Arab, then there was the African, number 4, that time. And people rose up in resistance to this colonial rule. You will hear the story of Chief Koinange, who in 1912 had to go to the court to apply to be allowed to plant coffee in his farm, because no natives were not allowed to plant coffee. And he had to fight to be allowed to plant coffee. People were not allowed to settle in certain parts of their country. There was resistance in 1922. A man called Hari Dhuku led a demonstration in the center of Nairobi, near where the Central Police Station is today. And the colonial police opened up fire, and many people were killed. Some were arrested and detained. Hari Dhuku was taken to Kismayu, which is then part of Kenya, and he detained there for several years. Then came later on the struggle for land, the Mau Mau struggle. But there was also struggle in other parts of the country, Western Kenya. But before that, the Nandi resistance, which you've heard about, led by Samuel Koitalel. The Kamba resistance here, led by Mwindu Mbingu. The resistance by the people of Western Kenya, Ojijo Teko, Agula Awala, Elijah Masinde Wanameme, just to mention but a few. You will remember, of course, Mekatili Wamenza from the coast. So there were several people of this country who resisted colonialism. Eventually, Mau Mau freedom movement came up in 1952. And a state of emergency was declared in this country. Many people were arrested, were detained, and very many people were killed during that struggle. It's a very bloody struggle. You must remember that before that, a man called Wayaki Wahinga was arrested from his home, taken all the way to the Savo, made to dig his own grave, and was buried alive in his own grave. So the struggle was very bloody. But in the end, independence came. And independence was a combination, the struggle was a combination of the freedom fighters who were fighting and those who mobilized the masses to protest